punctual in that would help us save.
Okay, I'm spending a bit more time with you in this because we're talking about counties now. Yeah. How can the relationship between MCAs and governors be made more cordial? Your colleague in Meru is having a very difficult time.
Right.
And 7 of her CECs were rejected. Only 7 or only 3 were approved. When she tried to address the county assembly, they literally walked out. Now she's trying to reach out to them, Kawira, to tell them to sit and have a cordial conversation. They've said they're not going to attend.
Well, I think it's, first, I think the situation in Meru is rather unfortunate. It's pretty unfortunate. It is bad for devolution, let me say that. It is really bad for optics to our people. And I do not agree. It is not called for at all. We must reach a certain level of maturity in our relationship to understand that we are all beneficiaries of the goodwill of the people who took us there. I don't know why this lesson gets forgotten very quickly, Trevor, that we are all together in the arena. A few months ago, less than 3 months ago, we were all there sweating and panting and singing and wearing colors and saying things, you know, to persuade people to elect us. You know, and in most cases, you find everybody was saying, you know, I'm going to do this, I'll do this. And then when people have acceded and you have been voted, you get in there, then all of a sudden the agenda changes. Yeah. Other than going to be an advocate for the people's rights and interests and their well-being, then you go there to become, you know, a sniper. That your agenda now changes from serving the people to blocking the agenda of an individual, or creating stumbling blocks, or personal differences that are useless and not beneficial to the agenda of the county. I think, one, on the side of the governor, it is important to have a proper understanding of the needs of your members of county assembly. Have dialogue with them. I believe, you know, be civil when it comes to discussions, but be factual too. Yeah. Let them know what is doable, what is not doable, and share your vision with them. And more important, remind them that you are there to serve the people. Okay. And all of you are beneficiaries of that goodwill. And that goodwill can be withdrawn anytime. And that is why sometimes I say, and I would repeat many times over, if you look at the turnover of the number of elected officials who make it back to either parliament, the county assembly, or even governors, the percentage is minimal, less than 10% all the time. Reason is most of the time when we get there, we forget ourselves, we get excited, we change the plan and the agenda. Yeah. And then if you look at what is happening in Meru now, other than going there to serve the people, it has now become a national show. It's a charade for the whole country. I believe it is wrong, in my view. And I would want to urge my colleague and friend, the governor and the MCAs, to save the people of Meru this show and serve the people. All right. And really, I hope MCAs across the board in all our 47 counties will take cue from most of the counties that have led. Yeah. Remember how it started in Makueni during the first tenure of Governor Kivutha Kibwana. There was even shooting in the county assembly premises. But then they quickly learned and they got on their act. Now, Makueni is one of the most progressive counties in terms of development, and the agenda they have, I believe they will continue that way. In my county, Kiambu, we have been largely civil. We have a good relationship with my county assembly. We intend to keep it that way, to serve the people of Kiambu. And I will do definitely my best as the governor to make sure that top on our priority list is the interest of the people of Kiambu, not my interest, not the personal interest of even my MCAs. Okay. It is to serve the people. All right.
Dr. Nyikal, how can this standoff in Meru be resolved? It's just one of the counties where there's a bit of push and pull between the MCAs, because they were meant to institute checks and balances, not intimidation and blackmail.
Well,
two sides of the story here.
Again, I may come back to the governor with saying what feelings. these are issues that actually arise from feelings that people feel. And now when Governor Kawira is calling them, I think the biggest thing is to find out how they feel, what are they feeling about, how can we address that. And you may find that if that is done and they have a sense of belonging to what decisions are being made, being involved, that may solve the situation. I don't think there is any way other than the governor and the MCAs sitting down and starting to look at their county. This is what we have been asked to do for our people. It doesn't matter how much we fight. If we don't do anything, nobody wins. It is loss for everybody. And you remember in the McQueen case, it reached a point where Governor Kivuta said, even if it means I lose this job, let it be. And then reason started to prevail. What we hear is that sometimes we are not being listened to. When funds are being disbursed, we are not taken care of. What people must realize, not just the MCAs, but everybody, that public offices, as much as they may look very appealing and ostensibly many times described as lucrative, they are not. Most people who go to public offices, if they just spend their time and energy to look after themselves, they would actually materially do much better than they are. There are a few who take there, so that the MCAs must, in my view, should first of all look, how do we help the governor? The governor should also say, how do we do? If there is a critical matter that requires that they go to court, let them go to court. Let the court decide. But at this time, I have a believing what Governor Kawira started may actually bring the result. If both sides realize what their job is. These ego wars, you never win an ego war in public service. What you win is service to the people.
And Gabriel, as a political strategist, what should she do now? There's been a lot of accusations. On one side, there's accusations of nepotism. In fact, the involvement of the first gentleman is a big concern there. On the other side, she's saying they're intimidating her and she's trying to reach out to them and they're not showing up. As a political strategist, what should the governor do now? Because all this time lost is time that service would have been delivered to the people.
Trevor, if I was allowed to make a phone call to her, I'll tell her to take a chill pill. Relax. Like Governor said, go back to the original plan, because this is a war she can never win. And if anything, take a blueprint from what Governor Anne Waiguru went through. Even though hers was politically instigated, she needs to learn what did Anne do. And at the end of the day, like Dr. is saying, you must sit down with these people. Remember, these are the people, they can give you a headache that you don't want. The other thing is, Murega Baicho, who is the first gentleman, he also needs to take a chill pill. Give the wife space. Let her be able to deal. She was the one elected, not him. Sometimes people don't get it. They are pushing it as if they were elected as a pair. No. People voted for her. Her name was on the ballot box. So he needs to get that, that idea that, if I am the issue, and many people think I am the issue, I need to pull back. And I can guarantee you, if this happens within this week, you will see the MCAs will start listening. At the end of the day, they have to. She is the governor. There is somebody, people are not even talking about governor. There's a man called Isaac Mutuma. Have you heard anybody talking about him? That is the deputy governor of Meru. Nobody's talking about him, And that just shows you we have a stage where you have the governor and these MCAs, everything has been forgotten. You start badly, and you can see for the next 5 years, you're just going to be chasing your tail. So what the governor must do is take a chill pill, go back to the drawing boards. And I think she has started to do that, which is the right way. Bring these people on board. Don't allow, again, this ego to bloat and to become an elephant. Don't allow that. Many people may mislead you. You may get advisors who will, tell you, tell this, they can go to, don't do that. Call these MCAs, sit down, and I would probably ask her to get somebody who, knows one or two things about strategy. Let them sit down, let them move back to the original plan, because they had a plan for Meru. And guess what? Counties are not doing well at this point. Whether it's matters disbursement, you know, we are still looking at the economical, you know, shuffling here and there.
Yeah.
So things are not all rosy. And to just start, you know, off the demon hole with what we are seeing in Meru, a county, you know, where the economic prowess in Mount Kenya is known to be quite heavy, I do not think this is what the people of Meru envisioned.
Yeah.
And if it continues, the same people will make a change.
Maybe a small issue arises here that as a country we need to look at. As we are talking of gender parity and looking at our constitution, we must accept that we are going to have situations where the president is a lady, the governor is a lady. We must accept this. And I don't think we have as much prepared of what the men do, the spouses do. For the ladies, I think there's enough provision. People know they do charity and so on, and they take. I think there is need to also look in these situations what would be there also these people. Like that gentleman asked a very, that gentleman asked a very simple. Now when in that house is given a government house, will I also live in it?
No, that.
So, but I'm saying this.
Actually, a conversation there as well.
No, there is that small conversion we have to look at. But what I would say, because I've been in a situation when we were working in the district hospital, where my wife was a district head, and there was a doctor in the thing, and you just pull back.
Of course.
And when you go to function, you address yourself as the husband of. You know, because you see, we must be proud, you know.
Yeah.
Women are very proud to say, I'm the wife of the governor. But men must also realize now, the person that is known is the person who was elected or the head.
And Dr. even more reason to agree.
But I think we need to look at it more substantively and see what etiquette, what kind of things they can do, so that.
I think that's a discussion that people would need to dwell into, because you know there are clearly defined acceptable roles for first ladies.
Yes.
Correct. You'd say the first lady is expected to do this. They're actually welcomed in functions and they are respected. But first gentlemen.
No, it's an important point.
You see, the governor raised a good point.
First gentlemen tend to get the rougher side of it. Because, but I think the important point I wanted to make is that I think also as a people, we need to respect the place of family when we become elected leaders. I do not agree with the notion that the husband of any elected official, like for example the governor, should just fade away. I mean, he should not just disappear. I mean, if they've been, for example, maybe before she was elected, they would go to functions together. There are couples who have that, way of doing things. They walk together all the time. They go to church together. They go to functions. They, do things around together. If that was their style, then why would it change? Because she has been elected. They can still go together to functions, and indeed, in most cases, and I would want to tell my good friends here to read the autobiography of Margaret Thatcher, because at one point she said that in spite of all her power, she made sure that all through her life, she's the one who woke up to make breakfast for her husband and called him and treated him as such. It's only that when she would go to, the House of Commons, that the guy would not be there. But in every other aspect of their life, he's there. I believe if you look at also how do foreign leaders look at, for example, like American presidents, their wives are with them all the time. And even in functions, including even, like for example, in the case of Barack Obama, even when he was addressing major functions of Congress and other functions, his wife was with him. And she would even get an opportunity to address the nation. And that's how she made a name. Hillary Clinton became, a world figure, including a presidential candidate of the most powerful nation on earth, by being together, fronted, and given the pedestal by her husband.
Yeah.
So I believe even for a man married to a woman who would then ascend to that position, for example, like the governor for Meru, they don't need to shy away from the fact that they are married to that woman. Of course, there has to be the let of space, allow her to do her work, but don't just go hide and disappear. If it's a woman you love, you have a relationship, it's your wife, it's a mother of your children, be there to support her and be seen and say the right things at the right time.
I think what Governor is talking about is the political support.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the offices that he has just mentioned, like the First Ladies of the United States, that's a very well-defined, structured First Lady office. The problem with what the First Gentleman in Meru has done is he has to realize that when he speaks or takes a microphone to speak, people will always think it's the First Lady of Meru talking. We have to be, or it's the governor of Meru talking. We have to be very clear. The things he utters become policy immediately because, and this is why I think sometimes give the space. If it's political support, by all means. I mean, probably, so to speak, and probably, I know I may not be wrong, he may have contributed the bulk of her support, probably in terms monetary. And I agree that when it comes to support the governor, support your wife as much as you can. But when it comes to the running of things, people will see a different angle altogether. I actually cringed, Governor, when I saw him taking the microphone and addressing people. I knew this may not end well because of the cheering and everything. And immediately that evening, the MCAs started throwing or pelting stones at him. So I think he needs to understand when to talk, when not to do things. Just be clever in these scenarios. And I think if he plays by that rule book, I can guarantee you he can be a very good support structure for the governor, which I know she actually needs. But more than that, don't give people space to actually chastise your character.
As the governor said, don't always leave people to the whims of individuals and their character. There will always need for some kind of structure that gives those people guidance, so that actually there'll be somebody advising. Now you know you are the First Gentleman. What you are supposed, including, you can't reprimand your wife because she's now the boss. So those kind of things, things just don't happen. Things are made to. That's the difference between human society and animals. We have seen this as a problem. We actually need to look at it because it will crop elsewhere again.
Okay.
Well, in public functions, though, Trevor, when I'm out there with the First Lady, I have no problem in saying, First Lady, come here and greet people.
But you see, the First Gentleman.
So what is the big deal about saying that the First Gentleman come and greet your people? Anyway,
it's a nice place to go. Let's take a look at the feedback that's coming through. There's a lot of it coming through, and then we wind up this conversation on how to deal with economic issues. Tighten your belt. Life is about to get tougher, MPs say in the new report. Let's see what you're saying first of all. Simon Jerry says, to my governor Wamatangi, why increase cost of treatment in Kiambu District Hospital with high margins? A test that cost 700 in August, it's now 1,200, and NHIF can't cover the service. Drugs are up, etc. Is this the affordable healthcare he told us about? Governor, let you answer that directly.
Yeah, I don't think that that particular person who has written that has the facts at her fingertips, or his fingertips. I don't know who it is. Simon Jerry. There absolutely has not been any increment. So I hope that is done in good faith, because there has been no increment, Trevor, anywhere across any service in the entire of Kiambu County. So I'll find out from the person if they would, probably be more forthcoming. But like I've said, I hope it is said in good faith, because of course also when we get out into these public spaces, maybe somebody with an agenda may just throw a tweet to whatever. But the fact is that absolutely there has been zero increment, none at all, for any service anywhere in the county. not medical, not hospital, not business. Indeed, what I did as a governor, there has been there were some discussions asking whether people should pay licenses between now and December and then pay for licenses next year. What I did was I said, because people are coming from the COVID scenario, we allowed a 2-month free period such that people who are applying for licenses now get their licenses all the way up to the year 2023. To allow people space. So, like I've said, the facts are that there are no increments. Increments are normally done through a lawful process of tabling a bill in the county assembly, which is supposed to be debated and acceded to, accepted by members of the county assembly. That's why I've said I don't think that is factual. But to let the person know if maybe that could have happened, maybe somebody overcharged them unfairly in a hospital.
So it was fraud.
I'll find out. It could have maybe just been fraud, but that's the fact.
All right.
Thank you.
Bob Otieno says CDF seized after the promulgation of the new constitution in 2010 under the county government via devolution. Legislators are hiding behind it under bursaries, yet devolved functions can take care of it and they'll be irrelevant to the voters. Dr. Anyikal, very briefly. That is, the devolved functions can take care of this and thus you'll be relevant to the voters if the CDF...
You remember that I said this is not a devolved fund. This is actually a decentralized fund. And it's like any other fund, as the governor earlier said. There are many other funds that are being actually run from the national, by the national government at the county level. So this is just one of them. The MPs will not be irrelevant even if CDF was not there. In fact, they'll now do their job of oversight and legislation and representation quite well. But what has turned out is that this fund has been very useful to the people. And I think there's sometimes an element of ill will towards MPs. And I think those of us who have been in position of authority, there is always a lot of ill will towards people in authority. And I think some of these statements point to that direction.
Okay, let's finish up with the tweets. There's a lot of them. We'll see if I can wind up through them and then give you a chance for closing remarks here. This is Babu Michael. Says, truth be told, CDF has helped many across the country, and that is what most MPs are fighting for. But a few of them have embezzled these funds and still fighting it to come back so that they get something to eat.
That will go for any fund.
You mentioned that this is the CDF is actually audited, so it's very...
It's audited?
Yeah. Okay. Go to the next one. Let's see the Kipgeno head boy. Says CDF should be retained but without any increment. Due to the perennial drought and hunger, both levels of government should increase budgetary allocation to agriculture to support food production and distribution. Okay? LJ Sindani says NGCDF is okay, but the MPs must delink themselves from it. Though legally the MPs are not involved in NGCDF, in practice they decide how it is disbursed and who it goes to. We have national government structures who should manage NGCDF. Okay? Chemai's Korir says CDF must return back because most students depend on those funds. Also, most public projects depends on these funds as well. Also, most schools enjoy school bus services because of CDF-sponsored school buses. Okay. Eddie Jr. says CDF should be nowhere near MPs because they end up giving to their families and friends, yet mwananchi wa kawaida wanabaki kuwa wa kawaida. Okay. Agumba Steve says, without CDF, MPs are nothing and will have nothing to present for those seeking for re-elections. Let's try having them work without it and see how they'll manage the constituency. On the side of MCAs and the governorship, it's all politically instigated to cause instability. Okay. Oringe Waswa says the Kenya Kwanza administration has turned the appointments into what looks like the loyalist rewarding scheme. The period of politicking is long gone. What Kenyans need right now is to see the pledges that were made being actualized. Okay. MC Ruma says CDF is a good initiative, but it's being mismanaged by politicians for their own selfish interests. The fund is instrumental in paying for bursaries, building of roads and schools. It should be increased by Treasury, but it should not be managed by MPs. All right. Dr. Anyikal, I'll start with you closing remarks as we finish on this discussion.
Well, I think on the issues that we have been discussing, I think as he said, the election time is over. It is now really upon the Kwanzaa government to make sure that the service is delivered equally across the country. We have hardships, and so a fair distribution of resources is going to be utmost. That is actually the best way to appease the country, bring it together. CDF, the law as it is now, has actually removed it quite a bit from the MPs. Even now there's an oversight committee that before was not strengthened, is going to be strengthened. The panel that picks the members is actually done by the deputy county commissioners. So again, the MPs are not there. They may influence it, but if they try directly, it will not work. Yeah. So I think CDF is adequately separated from the MPs, and what we are doing in Parliament now is actually to align it with the new constitution so that there's no conflict, because the courts will interpret anything in terms of the letters of the law, not how it affects the public. Yeah. And therefore, we need to protect it from that threat.
You've been in the health committee for a while. I wouldn't let you get off the set without talking about NHIF increment allocations. Will that help, in your view, at the time when most Kenyans are pressed economically?
It is how we manage social security. The same thing is NSSF. You see, if you take NSSF, you take NHIF, you take, let's say, farm subsidies, you take school feeding programs. All these are social security. And it is just how they are managed. In fact, when Governor was responding to the issue of the increase, I've always been dreaming that one day people will have an NHIF card, walk into a hospital, government, private or public, and go home without paying anything. And that the services will be the same. Some people think that it's impossible for services to be the same, but I practice as a doctor when public hospitals were better than private hospitals. We can get back there, perhaps to the level of Japan, where you can't quite distinguish between a public and a private sector, and all of it is paid by the social insurance. If we get there, and that should be our dream, we will have to increase NHIF appropriately, but its management and application is what we need to look at.
Yeah, so right now you think the issue is just around the management, nothing else?
It's the management, is the structure, and let me tell you something. Although we are a bit slow than other countries, these social health insurance approaches, we are looking at it in a welfare manner. They take a lot of time. In Japan, they started in the 50s. And actually completed it in the 80s. So it takes a long time unless you take like the British system where say we'll get the taxes, we put enough money to run health services. But that's difficult. Most countries are going through insurance. People pay more, but if they get services, they'll be satisfied. Let me tell you, there are two things that if you took care of in any country, people will feel much richer. Health services and education.
Yes.
If you could just get education that my kids could go through up to the end without me paying anything. Whenever I'm sick, I can get health services. People will be much richer. Those two things impoverish families. Okay. Yeah. So I think increasing is good, but how do we manage it?
All right.
Yeah, let me actually finish with where Mheshimiwa has actually finished in his last statement. You see, education actually defines our labor and skill workforce, so it is as important as they come. And every time you hear a member of parliament, they'll be talking about, this CDF. And I really support CDF because personally I've been able to see what it has done. So if you hear any member of parliament, most of them talk about bursaries and education and education and education. Ward Fund, probably when it comes, you'll hear about the very same thing. The national government is talking about probably education, putting much into education. So I think there needs to be a proper streamlining of the funding around education. We need to make it a very core platform in such a way that all the way from early childhood, coming to basic, coming to high school and universities or TVETs, it needs to be very well crafted, that there are no gray areas. Because if everybody's telling you about they need this money to sort education, they need same thing with the Ministry of Education, which we know also have a budget to these services. It needs to be very well streamlined. Coming to the counties, I think with what you were talking about UBI and that 35% allocation, I've always told Kenyans and so many people, when you talk about 35%, you must define what 35% of what. When an economy is doing badly, what do you can get a 35% of nothing at times, or very little that it would make any sense. So I think there's a bigger plan to grow our economy. Once we grow our economy, even if we go for 40%, which will trickle down all the way to the mwananchi, the better. Having said that, I think Governor Muna Kibarua Ngumu, I think most of these counties, for sustainability, I don't think it's a 35% per se. I think what many counties will be sustained by is their own source revenue. And many people will start strategizing. Many counties, they must start strategizing to ensure that their counties are also economically endowed. And I think if they're able to do that, that to me will be more of a sustaining effort than just crying for the 35%.
Yeah, but also before I come to Governor, are you seeing a situation where government seems to be shifting goalposts in terms of how to help the people when it comes to the rising cost of living? At first it was now it is 1 year, it was 100 days, it is moved to 1 year.
One thing I will tell you, and I was very skeptical to that, but then somebody told me, you see, talking from outside is very easy. Talking while you're inside, things change because you do not know what you have. Outside there, you're working probably with something that is not raw. Once you come to office and governor presents to you the paperwork, you realize, wow, this one may take longer. And I believe that's the case, of what they found. Because when you say 100 days, that can be a promise, but when you sit down and see the kind of strategies you have to apply, the kinds of mathematics, what was left in the coffers, that actually, Trevor, changes the entire ball game, and I believe that is what happened in this case.
All right, Governor, closing remarks. And I know there's an area you told us here last week, Ngoliba area and Gatwanyaga area, that is facing the out. Is there an intervention going on now?
Absolutely, and I think that's what I would want to make my closing remarks. First, by urging Kenyans, now that the rains have come, and though they've come a bit late, to urge our people quickly and urgently take advantage of the rains. Let's get down to business, to plant the seeds of cereals and other foods, so that we can get back to where we were before. We've made the interventions that we promised to make, and still ongoing, Trevor. We've stocked fertilizer. I can speak on behalf of my people of Kiambu, but I know, because I exchange notes with other governors, that most of them have prepared. And we've stocked the subsidized fertilizer across most of the counties. So it's available. And our farmers just need to quickly get it, and then let's get to planting. We have been in a very dire situation. And of course, though the rains have come, that does not mean that it is immediately resolved. We will still be in that situation for the next few months because we didn't have much reserves. So we want also to let our people know, and especially those that are relevant to this discussion, maybe some of them in places like here in Nairobi, where we are largely entrepreneurs and workers, white and blue collar workers, who largely depend on what we find in supermarkets, unlike our people in the rural areas. What we want to say right now to our people is let's also establish fair austerity measures right now. I don't think it's time to spend what we have either nationally at county government level wantonly. For the next 6 months or so, we'll still have to be in the wait period to ensure that we get back to where our food security levels are. But otherwise, my friend Trevor, I want to wish our viewers a good week, and my colleagues here.
All right.
And see you next week on Thursday.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. His Excellency Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Governor, Dr. James Nyikal, Member of Parliament for Semen, Gabriel Muduma, comms strategist and political commentator, Asante Sana. And stand by for the Voice of Africa, which has partnered with Airtel Africa across all the 14 counties. Now, the Voice is the largest music platform in the world. Airtel's role is connecting people, and a vision of enriching lives ends through the Voice of Africa platform. Airtel will be transforming people's lives and helping Kenyans unlock their potential. Registration, people have been asking, how do you register? How do I register? Go to www.thevoice.africa. There is no .com, keep in mind. It's just www.thevoiceafrica. That is how it goes. When does the registration close? It begins on Friday, 21st October, and closes on Thursday, 10th of November at midnight. Audition dates are November 26th. That's in Nairobi. Mombasa, it's November 23rd. Anyone from the country can apply. In Nakuru, there's only one winner who will get this, $100,000. Ama namna gani? Plus a recording contract as well. Right? Bye for now. Cooking tips coming up next.